Hi everyone, Eva here. Welcome to my channel. I am so excited you're here with me today because I have none other than Matt from My Raw Intuition. Matt is a holistic educator. He has a passion for raw and living foods. He's been doing this lifestyle, the raw living lifestyle, for 11 years already, and he's a baby. He's only 36. So this is so excited to have Matt here today with us. I'm going to ask him some really cool questions. So hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Hey Ava, thank you so much for having me on. I love your channel. I love all the value that you bring to the community. So I'm excited to be here to speak with you.
Oh, this is so excited because I admire your work too. This is a
Thank you.
small community, and we learn so much from one another, and we share, and it's just awesome. So thank you for being here and for your time. So I know a little bit about you, but for those of my viewers who don't know who you are, what you do, can you introduce yourself a little bit better than what I said?
Yeah, no, what you did was great. But so for anybody out there that doesn't know who I am, my name is Matt. I have a channel called Raw Intuition. I'll kind of get into how I came up with that name here in my story, but basically, I started off like most people, standard American diet and lifestyle growing up. I grew up with a lot of pretty common health conditions like asthma, eczema. I had really dry skin. So that was like one of the things that kind of plagued me throughout childhood was my skin. It was always super dry and itchy. I remember like my skin, it would get so dry that it would crack and bleed. So my parents would like put on this cortisol cream and like all this other, these drugged up lotions and things until finally the pharmacist told my mom she needed to stop putting it on me. So thankfully he did that. But yeah, so I grew up with all these issues.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
And
I just
yeah,
have a quick question about that. Were you in a cold climate?
yeah, I've lived in Minnesota my whole life.
Okay.
So
I was
yeah,
wondering. Okay. Okay, go
yep.
ahead.
So it gets pretty cold here. I mean, I feel like our summers are like 3 months long, and then it's back to winter. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, I basically, through my teenage years, I started to accumulate, a few more issues like anxiety and depression and just really self-critical, pretty toxic thinking towards myself. I kind of trace it back to some interactions I had with some old friends in high school was where I was kind of rejected from my old group of friends after I had moved away, and we were reunited later. And yeah, so anyways, I had some self-worth issues going on, and so that really stuck with me until I got into this lifestyle. So at the age of 25, I discovered juicing. I came across a radio program that was talking about juice fasting. And so for some reason that kind of sparked my interest. And I was just going to do like a 2 or 3 day juice fast, right? And just kind of try it out. And the funny thing is, my brother had just given me a juicer that he wasn't using like a few weeks before that. So, kind of a synchronicity going on there. And so I just decided to go with it. Went to the store, got all the fruits and vegetables that I thought I could juice, and then I got through those first 2 or 3 days, and I was feeling really good. And so I just decided I was going to keep going. I ended up going 10 days, and it was truly one of the most life shifting moments that I have had. Like it opened my eyes to kind of a new paradigm of thinking towards health and towards food, towards what we required to be healthy. Because, I grew up, I was always, especially like 16 and on, I started to want to put on more muscle. And so I was hyper focused on calcium and protein. So I was drinking a lot of milk
Yeah.
and eating cheese and um, eating like all the meat that I could find, because all I thought about was protein and calcium. And I did also like I would look at I was always health conscious, right? But in my own unique paradigm. Because my mom did always teach us that we are what we eat, and she did make a lot of home cooked meals, but it was like packaged stuff still. So a lot of the times. And so I would look for like the waters that had, vitamins like Gatorade and vitamin water and things like that, just because I knew that vitamins were good for us, but I really focused more on the protein and that sort of thing. I remember even going through uh, a fast food drive up, and it had like the nutrition facts on the wrapper, and I just looked at the protein content, and I was like really like thinking I was doing something good for myself because I was getting all this protein,
Yeah.
even though it was fast food. So my understanding of health was not good.
Yeah.
I just kind of thought, if you get in the protein, you're gonna be good. So, but yeah. Anyways, so the juice fast really opened my eyes to, I had gone 10 days without ever, consuming protein or what I thought of as protein. Um, no animal products, all the things that I had read in magazines and really learned in school and, from society essentially, of what we really should be focusing on in terms of food. And I wasn't eating any of that. I was really just having fresh fruits and vegetables, which, people, they say to eat fruits and vegetables, but it's kind of a side note to the protein,
Yeah.
from what I had learned.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was my eye-opening moment. I just felt so good. My mind was actually probably the most, um, you know shifting thing was my mindset.
Yeah.
My toxic thinking had really diminished, and I was starting to just notice how much more clear-headed I was, and
Mm.
I was starting to sleep better. I had better energy. I was starting to lose weight because I had some extra pounds. And so yeah, I mean, it was just, kind of by mistake that I stumbled into that radio program, and
Yeah.
started juicing, and I just took it from there. Once I got done with that juice fast, I just started learning more about raw foods. I got into like Dan McDonald and John Kohler and Dr. Robert Morse. And those guys really educated me towards the raw lifestyle.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's been over 11 years now, and I'm still feeling great.
But I am just so in awe because at 25, I was scratching around. I was so clueless. I was broke. Like, how did you even have money to go buy vegetables? Like, that to me is like, what? I could only afford fast food. I'm so in awe of people that find this lifestyle when they're so young. That's amazing. First of all, and then your family, they were supportive when you started all this nonsense because your mom must have been like, what are you doing, Matt? What is like, what happened with that? Because you were so
Yeah, that's a good point. So for first off, with the financial end of it, it was expensive. And the way that I afforded it, so I lived near this little health food store that I would always go to, and they would see me in there so often. Like, I started to get to know everybody in that store, and the I remember, like, I was kind of thinking to myself, how can I keep eating this way and still afford it? Because yeah, it was expensive.
yeah,
And at that moment, like around that time, the produce manager just came up to me. I didn't approach him or say anything to anybody, but he came up to me and asked if I wanted a part-time job, working in the produce section. And I would get a 20% discount on all the produce. So that it was like there were so many synchronicities that would happen that led me into finding ways to make this work,
yeah,
that it was just like it was meant to be.
yeah,
So yeah, that was one thing that happened. As far as how my family reacted, it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine from the beginning. Yeah, my mom was, she obviously knew fruits and vegetables were healthy, but yeah, my family didn't necessarily think that what I was doing was optimal. They didn't think it
yeah,
was like the right thing to do.
yeah,
But it didn't take that long actually, because the great thing about my path is that I really got into educating myself, right? So I was watching a lot of documentaries, I was reading books, which that's another thing that completely is backwards from my previous life. I never wanted to read. I was never interested in reading. I just wanted to watch sports and go to the bars and things like that. And so yeah, I just started reading a lot, like anatomy and physiology books and health books and all these sorts of things. So I started to get a pretty good understanding of how to communicate it, and I think that helped to kind of ease some of their worries. And also, they just started to see the results.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think one of the things that kind of gave my mom a little concern is that I got into a lot of like fasting and juice
Yeah.
fasting. Early on, I was doing quite a bit of that, and I got pretty skinny, and
Yeah.
so she like I remember she approached me one time and she was like, "Are you all right? Like, are you sure that's healthy?" And I was just like, "Yeah, it's all right." But yeah, I mean, it was she was concerned but still supportive,
Yeah.
so that was nice. And yeah, again, over time the results just started to show for themselves because I completely got rid of my asthma, my eczema, my skin cleared up. Like my skin used to be very, other than dry, also used to be very uneven. Like my complexion used to be uneven,
Yeah.
and that completely cleared up. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just I think just my outlook and my disposition was so much better. So
Yeah.
I think that helped as well.
That's awesome. And how is your mom doing now? Like, did you change her a little bit? Is she inspired by you now?
Yeah, her and my brother are both pretty high raw. They're both vegan
Wow.
now. Yep, they're both vegan. They're pretty high raw, and
What?
so yeah, that's another
Minnesota?
thing that yeah, it makes the holidays a lot nicer having others that are like half the family is kind of on this path, and then the other half is still, healthy, but not on this necessary,
Yeah.
path. So
Yeah. And are you one of those vegans or raw vegans that have a problem with other people eating meat, or are you okay with it, or what's your attitude around that? Do you want to see it? Do you not want to be around? Like, how do you react?
yeah, good question. Um, in the very beginning, I remember being at Thanksgiving, and I had just like read the China study, and I was explaining to everybody at the table how you can like turn on and off cancer with or tumors with casein, and I was like, you shouldn't eat the cheese. So, yeah, I mean, I was much more, as I was learning about this, I was much more outspoken in that sense. But I have come to a realization that, you have to be patient with people and you have to understand where people are coming from. And I do, obviously, I don't enjoy being around people eating animals, but I understand that they're still going to see my example. And so just being an example for people is, I feel like one of the best things that we can do. And if you don't go around them, then they'll never actually get to see, be inspired by you. Right. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of my approach, is to, if they ask, then I'll share information about it. But I try not to, push it on them,
Yeah.
um, if they're not asking for it, because I know that can push people away. So
Yeah.
I just think the best way to get people to change is to show them your good example.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm not as good or as fast a learner as you are. I used to be the vegan police.
Oh yeah.
That was awful, just like lecturing everybody about whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes that works. Sometimes that is needed. So, I watched Gary Yourofsky, and he was very outspoken,
Yeah,
and he really he got to me, in terms of the ethical side. He was one of the big components of
yeah,
of like me understanding that. So, I
yeah.
think all of the approaches can work. It's just, you kind of have to know your audience, I guess.
Yeah. I like how you're saying lead by example. That's so powerful. Besides the people you mentioned that you watched online, did you have any mentors, or is there anyone you consulted with, or did you get coaching from anyone, or were you just completely comfortable and you just went for it without any external help?
Yeah, let me think. I don't think I got any coaching. I mean, I basically lived on YouTube watching Dan McDonald. My mentors were really those three guys: Dan McDonald, John Kohler, and Dr. Robert Morse.
Yeah.
Um, but also I mean, there were so many others too. Tanny Raw was one. I
Mhm.
watched a lot of her videos. She really inspired me.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just really reading a lot of the plant-based doctors books, like Dr. Barnard, his books, Dr. Esselstyn,
Mm.
the China Study by Dr. Campbell,
Yeah.
and even 80-10-10 by Dr. Graham, and a bunch of others. So the really my mentors were just the books and the YouTube videos, but I did eventually get just like a consult from Dr. Rick Dina, and that was nice to kind of get confirmation that what I was doing was working. So
I tried to get a consultation with them too, and I couldn't get through.
uh,
The beginning, I wanted consultations with everyone. I was like, I need
mhm.
help.
Yeah.
My detox was horrible. Did you have you said about the juice fast, but did you have a detox, or because you were so young, maybe you didn't have as bad a detox as I did? How was it for you?
Yeah, so my detox was oh, and I should mention I did in 2014 I took a 3-week certification course at the Graph Academy of Raw Food Education at the time. I think now they're called the Graph Academy of Nutrition Science. But that was also I would say they were my mentors as well. It was Jackie and Gideon Graff. So if anybody wants to check out that school, that's a good place.
Okay.
So the detox was I, it wasn't that bad for me actually. I did go through a few times that were kind of rough. Like, um, I I I remember one time specifically that was probably the height of my detox. What you would call a healing crisis,
Yeah.
and I triggered it myself accidentally by going out for a friend's birthday party, and I was already vegan and I was just looking for something. I wasn't fully raw. So I was just like anything on the menu that I could find. And there was some fried green beans. And so I just ordered some of those, and I had a few of them. I think I only had like 4 or 5 honestly,
Wait,
because they what's
fried
that?
green, what was it?
Yeah, fried green beans.
Oh, fried green beans.
Yeah. Eh,
Ugh.
yeah, yeah, and they were in like this. I remember they were in like a breading of some sort. So
Oh my
yeah, it
God.
was like the only plant food that I, was like interested in on the menu.
Right.
So I had a few of those,
Yeah.
and like I said, I only had like 4 or 5, and
Yeah.
then I gave the rest away.
Mm.
And so I went home that night, and my stomach was kind of like gurgling a little bit. I didn't really think too much of it, and and so I went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had to sprint to the bathroom, and I literally could not leave the bathroom. I was evacuating out of both ends, not to get too graphic, but I was evacuating almost not. I mean, I couldn't leave the bathroom. I remember I had to call into work for a week, and like my boss was all worried about me. I was just like, I'll be all right. I just gotta let it play out, because I just yeah, it was not good. So anyways, I trusted my body, knew how to clear it out, and so
Yeah.
I just kind of hunkered down in the bathroom for a week. And yeah, so that was like the worst of my, what I would call a detox crisis. But otherwise it was just like, a random, maybe a headache here or there, or just fatigue, But I never had any like super severe detox symptoms.
Okay. And did you also do any other therapies, any other wellness therapies? Like I know a lot of people will do a lot of colonics or enemas, or like you said, fasting, or maybe, I don't know, Reiki. I don't know. Did you do anything else besides just changing the food?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did most of those things. I didn't do Reiki, but I did, water fasting. I did juice fasting. I did mono fruit, like 10 days of watermelon, 10 days of grapes. I did um, liver gallbladder flushes. I did
Wow.
enemas and colonics. I did hot and cold showers. And
Wow.
let's see, I went to the sauna every once in a while.
Yeah.
A lot of those types of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was much more than just the diet in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now I've really kind of balanced out where it's mostly just the diet, but and then just
Yeah.
holistic lifestyle choices.
Yeah, yeah. And what about supplements? Do you now take supplements, or did you at the beginning? Like what does that look like for you? Do you supplement with anything?
Yeah, I do supplement B12
Okay.
because I did. So again, when I first got into this, I was kind of educated that the cleaner you get with your body, the more it's going to produce its own, vitamins and everything that you need. And so I didn't think that I needed to supplement B12. And so I went something like 7 years without supplementing anything, other than like a few times I would do like green powders. Um, and I think very early on I was doing, before I understood like the vegan aspect of it, I was doing like fish oil supplements, like omega-3 krill supplements or something.
Okay.
I did that for just a very short period of time until I figured out that that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, so I went all that time really not supplementing other than a green powder here and there. And then I went and got my blood test after like 7 or 8 years, and everything was great except for my B12. It was super low. And so I just decided I'm just going to start supplementing B12. I hear different opinions on that, but from my research, I just figure it's better safe than sorry, and so
Yeah.
I'll supplement B12, and that's the only supplement I take. I have experimented, like I said, very infrequently. I've tried supplementing with iodine, um, and I didn't do that for very long. And let's see, I think that's pretty much it. Iodine was like one of the only ones that I tried supplementing with.
Okay. So your blood work has been good all these years. How often did you check your blood?
Yeah, I tested my blood in 2017 and then in 2018. So I've done two blood tests and they were both great. I haven't done one since, but
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. And I'm also curious, since you were so young, I just can't get over that. Uh, what about alcohol? Did you drink alcohol and did drugs and anything else? Or like, what was that like? Because when you went into the lifestyle, I'm assuming you stopped drinking or smoking weed or whatever you were doing at 25. So what
Yeah.
happened there with friendships, with, I don't know, the whole thing? Can you
Yeah.
share about that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I drank probably enough for about 5 lifetimes. I mean, me and my buddies would go to the bars at least. I think it was like at least 5 times a week. There would always be a ladies' night going on at some bar. We'd always go there. so so it was a pretty wild time from pretty much 20 to 25. And yeah, so that I really didn't. I never got into drugs, like recreational drugs or anything. Other than a little, marijuana here and there, but that's about it. And yeah, so it it really it was kind of a slow transition out of that group of friends. And it wasn't that, there wasn't any sort of like clashes or anything. It was really just, I just kind of got tired. And even before I was 25 and I decided to make this change, the years leading up to that, I was already getting, little nudges from my intuition that I didn't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
Because I was starting to just realize that I wasn't really able to remember much of my life because I was always like blackout drunk.
Mhm.
So, I would always look back at the pictures because my friends would take lots of pictures from the night out and post them on Facebook. And so that was like my memory was Facebook, right? Because I just like there's so many nights that I just couldn't remember. And so I just started to think like, I always enjoy listening to grandparents tell stories. And I was just thinking, like, well, when I'm that age, am I going to really even remember anything to really tell? And so that was one thing that I remember thinking about. And I just, being at the bars, it was just getting kind of old to me. And I just felt like I should be doing something better and more productive. And so, even though I was thinking that, I was still doing it because I just didn't know anything else to do.
Yeah.
And that's what all my friends wanted to do. So that's what I did. And then again, once I got into juicing and one of the things that actually tipped me off before the juicing was I started to learn about fluoridation in the water. And so I learned that it's not necessarily something that we want to be consuming
Mhm.
because it's not the fluoride that you would find naturally in the earth. It's
Yeah.
it's a different type of fluoride.
Mhm.
And so that was something I was like kind of learning about, revolving doors between government and industry and how funding works and all that sort of stuff. Um, so that also kind of made me want to find an alternative lifestyle because I just started seeing how much propaganda and industry marketing is shaping how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was just another kind of aha moment that I wanted to find something different and better for my life. And so yeah, but yeah, I just told my friends like I can't do these things and create the life and be the person that I want to be. Um, so yeah, I just kind of transitioned out of it. I actually started with like bringing first I started with kombucha, bringing that to the parties and just drinking kombucha.
Yeah.
Um, and then I started bringing my own fresh pressed juice to the parties and just drinking that. And then I just kind of, yeah, and then I got tired of just going to the parties. So all I wanted to do was read and learn about health. So that's what I started doing.
You got really into it then.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so tell me a little bit about the water thing, because I know that you are really into the water and the water quality, and that just kind of brought it up. It's perfect. So let's segue into the water because so many different camps out there, this water, that water. I don't even know what to believe anymore. So, what's your take on water?
Yeah. My take on water is that we we live in an extremely toxic environment, right? There's like thousands of new synthetic chemicals being introduced into the environment every single year. And they're, I mean, most of them are not tested. They don't need to be, they're not required to be tested. So they're just used. Um, and many of the chemicals that are used in like pesticides and other sprays and things, only the active ingredient is required to like be shown testing, but the adjuvants don't. It can be, and they don't even have to list them on the ingredient list because it can be a trade secret. And so it's just it's just put into the marketplace, and there's really no testing done. And so I just started to realize how toxic the environment was. And again, I decided that I didn't want to consume fluoride in my water, and so I just started. First, I went over to reverse osmosis, and I did that for many years, and that was fine. But then I discovered distilled water, and distilled water is the most. What I have found out is that distilled water is the most reliable, consistent purification method that we can do, and it's a natural process too. It replicates the hydrologic cycle, you know, the evaporation of the ocean water, and then it turns into clouds, and then it condenses back down and falls to the earth. That's essentially exactly what distilling does. So you just heat up the water, the steam rises, gets captured into this cooling coil, and then it comes back down into your jar as pure clean water. Because the toxins and the inorganic minerals, their boiling point is much higher than water, and so the water evaporates, but the toxins don't. So yeah, I just feel like distilled water for me is the best choice because I know I'm most consistently going to get out, you know, farming chemicals, pharmaceutical products, you know, just the stuff they add intentionally, industrial waste products. You know, there's just so much that's going into our waterways today. It's kind of crazy, and that's why I choose to distill my water.
And do you drink a lot of water with your kind of diet?
No, not a ton. I just mainly drink water in the morning when I get up, and then also in my smoothies.
Yeah.
So that those are kind of the two times that I actually drink water outside of the fruits and vegetables that I eat.
Okay. And so what does a day of eating look like for you?
Yeah, so I pretty much every single day, and it's been this way for many years. Basically, what I kind of teach people is my daily meal design is what I have a little acronym. It's SFS. All right, so it's smoothie, fruit, and salad. So every morning I can't remember the last time I didn't start my day off with a big massive smoothie.
Yeah.
It's like 8 to 10 bananas, mango, frozen fruit like mangoes, blueberries. I'll put in some chia seeds and maybe some kale or some other green. Sometimes it's just fruit. Other time, lately I've been doing a lot of fruit and greens, and that's my morning, you know, breakfast. And so that lasts me for a few hours. And then for lunch, I'll have a usually a mono meal of fruit like watermelon or peaches or you know, whatever's in season really. So I'll just have some fruit for lunch, and then for dinner I will have um, a smoothie, like a pre-salad smoothie. So I'll have a smaller smoothie, and then I'll have a big, massive, what I call a five-star salad. And so it's like a huge, at least 1 pound of greens, and then additionally the vegetables, and a homemade salad dressing, and yeah, and sometimes I'll have like, really depending on, you know, the availability of what fruits are available here in Minnesota, and the quality. I will include like steamed vegetables and steamed potatoes, and I always just include that in with my otherwise massively raw salad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because where you are, the weather, I mean, you can't really get the best fruit in the winter, I'm assuming. And I've been to
Yeah.
Minnesota by the summer. And there was plentiful then, but I'm just thinking in the winter, everything's imported. That was my question. So then your diet will be different from summer and winter, correct? So, and in winter, you might have a little tiny bit of cooked food just because the quality is not there of the fruit. Is that
Right.
okay?
Yep. Yeah. So I used to be a lot more strict with being 100% raw, but I just found that it's, you know, I mean, I look around And I mean, like after reading the Blue Zones book and just seeing other people in different camps of the plant-based, realm,
Yeah.
people go on Esselstyn's diet or even McDougall's diet, and that's not a raw centered, plan,
Yeah.
and people still resolve a
Yeah.
lot of their health issues. So, I was just looking around trying to be like practical about things,
Yeah.
and and again, the Blue Zones, they're not 100% raw, and they've got, historically they had, more people living to 100 and more.
Yeah.
So, I think it's more than the diet that
Yeah.
is, if we want to live a long, healthy life, it's much more than just being 100% raw. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, clearly there's so many examples of just whole food plant-based eaters that aren't focused on raw that live really long, healthy lives. And so I still like, I believe in raw. I still am like a huge supporter of raw, and I always will be. To my knowledge, it's just, it makes sense, and it's what every other creature on the planet does. And so my diet, I don't ever see my diet going less than like 90-95% raw.
Mhm.
If I have cooked food, it's just a few steamed, vegetables, potatoes, whatever, in with my otherwise big raw salad.
Mhm.
um, and and I don't think that will cause any, you know harm to me long term. So
Yeah. I don't either. That's perfect. And we all have to find our way and what works for us and where we live. And there's just so many variables. But I'm so glad you
yeah,
touched on blue zones. That's huge to me. People concentrate so much on the food and then they
yeah.
don't view health holistically. There's just so many other components to good health. But I'm also wondering, do you exercise? You look like you're in great shape. And how much fat do you consume? How low is your fat?
So I do exercise most days, but I'm not like a huge. I've gone to a gym very few times in my life. It's always been like just push-ups and hiking, and I do have a few like weights at my house that I use.
Okay.
But that's really, I do like 45 minutes a day, like 5 to sometimes 7 days a week.
Okay.
And it's just, something I've always done, really, even before I got into this lifestyle. I always wanted to have, muscle, and so I would pretty much every morning, I would always start my morning with like as many push-ups as I could do. I have a pull-up bar in my doorway. I'll just use that, and then use my weights. So I've always tried to stay in shape. I wasn't able to do it as easily as I am now in the past.
Mhm.
I always had extra weight, like especially my face and around my waist. Those are the two places that I really held extra weight, and so yeah, I do just in exercises that I enjoy, which is those simple body weight exercises. Run. I like to run. I'm kind of off and on with it, but I feel like once it starts to get cold here, it gets me out of my groove, and I kind of don't stick with it because when winter comes around.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's my exercise, routine.
Okay.
And as far
Pretty
as,
active.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's also one of the things, studying health and different, populations that have been healthy. All the blue zones, they're very active,
Yeah.
lifestyles. That's what their whole lifestyle is based around, is really movement. And it's so important for, so many different aspects of our health, our gut, our microbiome, our mitochondrial health, cardiovascular health, brain health. So there's so many things that exercise is important for, that I think that should be, part of everybody's lifestyle, is to, you don't have to go to a gym every day, but, just be active in some way. So yeah.
And the fat, how much fat? Because I know people want specifics, and I always wondered about that because I'm a little higher on the fat. So, what about you?
Okay. So I haven't calculated it recently, but the last time I calculated it, It was like between 15 and 17%.
Okay.
So yeah, so not too high, but yeah. So that's usually what I'm around.
Okay. And also, I'm just wondering, since we touched on the blue zones a little bit and how the importance of managing stress, do you have any good tips for how to manage stress? How do you manage your stress? Because that's one of the things that gets me every time. I'm like, all over the place. I
Yeah.
panic. So this is not good. I need to calm myself down. Before the interview, I was like, okay, meditate, be calm. So how do you handle your stress?
Okay, so stress. I mean, there's a few things. One is I surround myself with positive, supportive people. I think
Mhm.
that can be a huge help for people. If you're in, a toxic or a stressful environment, you're just naturally going to absorb that, and you're going to start expressing that. So that's one thing that I'm big on is changing our environment. And so, and both external and internally. So we have two environments going on. Our external environment, so the people, the media that you consume, the books that you read or don't read, the music you listen to, um, that sort of thing. If you're always, I always think about how, people wake up, they get on their phone, so they're taking in what's ever on their phone. Maybe the TV is on, they're eating breakfast and they're watching TV. They get in their car to go to work, the radio is on, they're listening to these messages. They get to work, they're just taking in whatever the company is telling them, and then they drive home with the radio on, get home to eat dinner, they're watching TV. So it's like you're always taking in outside influences to your mental state.
Mhm.
So no, most people are failing to be in that silence that allows them to decompress and to start to actually hear their own thoughts. And I think that's part of the reason why so many people just don't know who they are. They they never have a chance to listen to their internal voice. And so I think being silent, whether that's meditation or walking in nature or whatever it is that you need to do to find some silent time, I think that is really important. So that's one thing that I try to do as well. um, and then let's see, what else do I do? I mean, exercise, of course, like we just talked about, is a big stress reliever for me. I love, especially running. Running is has Even though I don't love to run all the time, I get into periods where I do really love it. When I'm
Yeah,
consistent with it, I love it. But then if I get out of the habit, it's hard for me to
yeah,
get back in.
yeah.
So um, but running has taught me a lot. Like there's so many connections with running that you can make to other aspects of your life. Cause so I'll be running and it's like the first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm wishing that I didn't start running. Like I'm wishing I went back home. But then I get into a kind of a groove and I'm going and it feels good and I'm enjoying it. And then maybe later on I start to get tired and then I start to pick out points in the distance that I tell myself I'm going to run to. And so I'll get there and then I realize, all right, that wasn't so bad. I can pick out another spot. And so I pick out another spot in the distance and I run to that. And I just keep doing that. And that it just shows, you can relate that to so many different things in your life, like any project that you want to do. Just pick something like I'm going to write one page of my book and today, and then I'll write that, and maybe I'll go a little further if I feel like it. So
Love that.
things like that. It just shows that when you set small goals for yourself, you can accomplish big things. And so, yeah, running has been a big stress reliever for me. And yeah, just really connecting with people that are passionate, like yourself and like the other people I've met in this lifestyle.
Mhm.
Um, it's nice to connect with people on the same frequency as you that are looking to improve themselves and to share that with the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that I wanted to save this for a little bit later, but that's just perfect segue into I understand you're working on something special right now, or you have some kind of a project. Someone, a little birdie told me. I haven't been on Instagram, so I'm not keeping up. But what is it that you're doing? Because you seem so well rounded, and I'm sure people are gonna wanna get more of you. So what are you doing? Some kind of a project?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my business partner, I like to call her my partner in rind, Jeanette over at Misfit Vegan.
Oh yeah.
We teamed up, and we get a lot of DMs and a lot of coaching requests, and so we were just like, all right, we should just probably put together a program that we can take people through, and because me and Jeanette have both been, we got into this lifestyle at the same time back in 2011. And it's funny, we have we have a lot of similarities that, like, we didn't know each other until just a few years ago, but like our lives have been very similar in many respects, so it's kind of funny. And so yeah, we just figured we would team up and share with people that are truly interested, like truly want to transform their life, the way they think, the way they eat, and their lifestyle, everything. Because these are the things that I believe have really helped me to succeed with sticking with this lifestyle and really enjoying it, and finding a practical way to do it. I think there's a lot of great teachers out there, but I think in many times I just see there's a disconnect between real life and what is promoted as the best way to live doesn't always translate into real life for people, especially people in like the Midwest.
Yeah.
If you're not living on the beach, or you're not in a spot that has terrific food options, or produce selection. So we wanted to make a program that would help as many people as possible in the most practical way to transform, first off, the way they think, because the way you think is going to dictate everything in your life. If you think negatively, if you think like a victim, if you think that the world is out to get you,
Yeah.
or that your circumstances are determined by everything else besides yourself, then it's going to be difficult to make any sort of change, at least any change that's going to, be sustainable over a long period of time. So
So true.
getting the thinking right is one of the big things that both me and Jeanette really focus on. And
Mm.
so that's going to be part of the program. Then we're going to go into how to, again, make this diet healthy and sustainable. And it's not a one size cookie cutter program. It's really personalizable. Is that a word?
Yeah.
It's really adjustable to each person's life situation,
Okay.
and then the lifestyle factors again. So yeah, we're gonna go through so much information that helped Jeanette and myself get to this point,
Yeah.
and hopefully get those people in the same situation.
I love that. That sounds amazing. That's like the kind of thing I could have used when I started, because I was all over the place. But do you think, and that brought up a good point in my mind, do you think there's a wrong way to do this lifestyle? Because I know a lot of us have, not messed up, but we wish we had done things differently. So is there a right and a wrong way to do this lifestyle?
Well, that's a good question. I think it is. I think there are better ways to do this lifestyle. I think there are worse ways to do the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really going to depend on where somebody's coming from.
Mm.
Because, like, for myself, I I in the beginning I could eat 6 avocados in one meal, and I would feel great. Like, it was like I loved it. But then now, if I eat 6 avocados today, I would feel awful.
Yeah.
I can only have like one.
Mm.
Um, Otherwise, I start to like get breakouts on my skin and things, and my digestion isn't that great. So I think it depends on where somebody's at with their current health. And yeah, I would say that it if somebody wants to learn, the best way to do it for themselves is to one, learn from people that have been doing this for a long time, or a good amount of time, um, and look at the similarities between those people. You don't always have to take what any one individual says 100% of the time. I don't do that. There's no teacher that I have learned from do I agree with 100% of what they say. So
Right.
my kind of life motto, or my um, thing that I go by is the 80-20 rule. Essentially, it's first off, it's follow, listen to all, follow none. Right. That's kind of what I go by, and really 80% of what I take from somebody is going to be things that I resonate with, and then usually there's like 20% of what they say that just does not resonate with me, so I just disregard that. But I
Yeah.
think a problem that people get into is that if they start to hear that 20% that they don't like, they completely disregard everything that that person says, you know whether that's the right thing to do or not. I don't think it is. I think there's things we can learn from each person, and everybody's gonna, everybody has their own biases, right? So it's pretty much impossible not to have a bias, and so and an unknown bias, right? A lot of us don't realize that we have bias. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important to get many different perspectives and kind of look at what works for them, and then apply it. And if it doesn't feel good, then you got to look for something else. So you really got to be your own researcher,
Yeah.
and try things, and just go with your intuition. I mean, my big thing is listening to your intuition. That's how I got to where I am, and
Yeah.
I think people need to trust their gut a lot more than most people do. Maybe because their gut isn't in the best condition,
Yeah.
but once you start to get healthier, you're going to start to have that connection, with your intuition, and it's going to start leading you in the right direction. So
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. So, Matt, do you think it's possible to get sick on this lifestyle? We've heard of some people recently dying or getting sick or all these things. And then people always inevitably blame it on the lifestyle, those outside of it. So, is it possible to get sick on the lifestyle? What are your thoughts on this? It's so controversial. Everybody's so quick to point a finger. What are your thoughts on this?
yeah, I know, I've noticed that too. My perspective on that is that I eat this way because I believe that it's going to give me the best chance at living a long, healthy life. But of course, nothing is guaranteed. And the diet, again, like we've talked about, is only one aspect of what creates your health. You can be, maybe somebody's eating a raw vegan diet, but they're spraying glyphosate on their yard or something. You can,
Yeah.
there's so many environmental toxins out there that can impact our health. And so yeah, I think you can get sick on any diet, because again, how are you thinking? How are what environment are you in?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can definitely get sick on this lifestyle if you're not taking care of all the aspects, and even sometimes we're exposed to things that we have no control over, and so it's difficult, but we just got to do the best we can.
So this is something that I always think to myself. If you were, God forbid, to get sick on this lifestyle, would you change anything? What would you do differently? We're already doing everything as good as we think we should. What would you think? What would you change in your lifestyle if you were to, God forbid, get sick?
Yeah. Let's see. So it's hard to say without actually being in the situation, because I've seen people say one thing and then they do a completely opposite thing when it
Yeah.
actually happens. Um, what I would say is that I I would I like to think that I would go into more like fasting, and maybe, you know, that would be my first go to. It really depends on what was going on, like what illness I had. But yeah, I would try to be as natural. Honestly, that's what it would be very difficult for me to see myself ever not doing it naturally. And
Yeah.
so that's, I can almost guarantee you that's what I would do. I mean, I
Yeah.
can really say I guarantee you I would.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what steps I would take.
Yeah. It's tricky, right? We like
Yeah.
I never think in those terms, but lately I'm like, oh, what would I do differently? I'm already doing everything I think I should be doing. So what, like you said, maybe fasting. So another good question I have, quite good according to me, but what has been the most difficult part about your healing journey, if anything? Because I know it hasn't been all roses all over the place. So there's got to be some sticky points. What have those been?
Yeah, great question. So I would say, and I'm still going through, different things that I'm trying to heal, mostly emotionally. And that's still really um being as, speaking as freely as I want to is something that I've always struggled with.
Mm,
I've always suppressed my voice, and that is something that I'm still working on today. Health physically, I feel great, but it's the anxiety, social anxiety, and just having the I don't I it's hard to even describe, but it's basically just being able to freely share my true thoughts without feeling like I'm gonna have some negative consequence or something.
which is
It goes
not
back
fair.
to
Now
yeah,
is the perfect time.
yeah,
Let loose.
exactly. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But yeah, I think it's comes from ch- events in childhood and things like that a lot of people have to work through, and including myself. So that would be the thing that I'm most consistently focused on.
Mm. And in your long history as a raw foodie, because it's been 11 years, that's amazing. Have you ever wanted to quit? And if you did, what kept you going?
Um, I can't say that I've ever wanted to quit because I just, this lifestyle and this way of living resonates with me so deeply. Like I just know that it's right, for me anyways. It's just how we're supposed to live, how I'm supposed to live. Um, and I just feel so great, mentally, even though I just said that I'm still trying to heal that, but compared to before, it's like night and day. And so yeah, I haven't really ever been at a point where I wanted to quit, but there are times where it can be difficult socially. But I've never let that stop me. I've always tried to be as open as possible, but at the same time I know that I could be better with that.
Yeah. And what about spirituality and how closely connected do you think it is to this lifestyle? What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it is as it's like it couldn't be more connected. I have become so, like, before I got into this lifestyle, there was like very little spirituality being expressed, and now that I have cleaned out my body and really detoxed out all the gunk, now I'm able to really connect with myself and with nature and with God. And my spirituality, it's almost been overwhelming how much um, it has elevated from living this way. Um, and so yeah, it's become a big part of my life, and I love the whole spiritual journey of this lifestyle, and just becoming, again, more of who I am, and helping more people to feel the same way. And yeah, so it's super connected.
I love that. And have you ever given any thought to psychedelics? And I don't know, there's a lot of people in our community that are really into that, from what I've heard. Psychedelics or LSD or any other mind altering drugs. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's necessary in order to heal, or could it be helpful?
I probably wouldn't say that it's necessary, but it is something that I have always been drawn to. I've never known the right people to help me really experience that. But it's always, ayahuasca. When I went down to Georgia for that 3 week certification course in raw chefing, a guy just that it was in the course was just in Peru, living with people that were doing ayahuasca ceremonies, and the stories he was telling me, like, it was just so, I was so drawn to it. And even before I knew him, I had heard of ayahuasca and I've always wanted to try it, because I do think that it does open up a part of our mind that we haven't allowed to open up, right? By our lifestyle and by our diet. We've really kind of closed off certain parts of ourselves that sometimes I do believe that those methods could be very helpful. I just personally, I would do it if I had the chance, but I haven't had the chance yet.
Okay, that's good to know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, what, speaking of all these kind of cool subjects, how did the name come about, Raw Intuition? Is that something that I know you spoke about this a little bit at the beginning? How did that come about?
Yeah. So it came about because of, you know, after that juice fast. Well, first of all right. So the whole um, the whole situation where um, I was starting to have these synchronicities that were kind of leading me in this direction, but I wasn't always listening. And then I did the juice fast, and I started to actually like consciously pay attention to those synchronicities, and they were just happening so often. Like it was kind of bizarre. And I was really starting to manifest things that, you know, were, I would just think of something that I wanted to happen or do, and then it would just happen not too long after that. Um, and I was just like thinking how strange that was, and I was wondering how, like, in the past, I wonder how many times I had these things happen, I just didn't recognize them, so I didn't act on them. But yeah, that's one part of it. But another part of it is that I once I cleaned out my body and I started to really like have a clear head and a clear connection with myself, I had a lot of emotional detox, um, and it was it was something in me that just realized how now that I am so much cleaner and healthier, um, and I'm now being, it's so much easier for me to listen to my own thoughts and follow my own, what I feel is right. I'm not worried about so much following what other people think I should do.
Mm,
And I was just thinking how many other people that are so much better than me at doing certain things, and if they would get clean, like, or if they would, get healthier like I did, I was just thinking how powerful that would be and how quickly the world could change if, because there's a lot of things I want to do, but I see other people that are better than me at it, and I'm just like, you can make such a difference,
mm,
such a bigger difference in the world if you kind of had this experience that I had. And so, yeah, that it just, I just feel like when once you tap into your internal voice, it just turns you into such a more powerful person,
mm.
um, and able to influence other people in a positive way. And so I just want other people to have that experience so that, more love and more positive energy can be, spread around the world so that we can hopefully, make things better for everybody.
That's amazing. I love that. And so good, so good. So people can get a hold of you with, I'm going to link all your information down below. You have this amazing program starting. I have one last question. Where do you see yourself in 20 years?
Great question. I hope in a tropical environment, and totally self-sufficient, and just happy. That's
Yeah.
I just want to be happy, and I want to be in an environment that I can pick my own food and just make still, I never want to stop make creating. I don't want to stop creating. Like I don't want to just go retire on a beach and just sit there all day. I want to always be creating.
Yeah.
So whatever I'm doing, I want to be creating, but I want it to be in a more tropical environment.
Yeah, I can understand that. Minnesota gets a little nippy in the winter.
It does, yeah.
So, okay, so once again, the program is starting when, or give us a little bit more on that.
Yeah, thank you. So it's the Ultimate Raw Transformation Program. It's actually
Mhm.
starting in just a few days. So there's only a few days left to apply for this go around.
Okay.
It starts November. It starts October 30th.
Oh, wow.
So it's this coming Sunday.
Okay.
And yeah, there's still, we have reached the amount of people that we were going to have in the group, but if there's anybody else that wants to apply, we are considering bringing in more people.
Cool.
And yeah, it's going to be 6 weeks of inspiration, education, and accountability for anybody that wants to truly transform, you know, pretty much all aspects of their life, and really learn how to make this, you know, whether it's all raw, whether it's high raw, whether you just want to be a whole food plant-based eater. We really just want to change who you see yourself as so that you can make the best decisions for yourself going forward and start reaching whatever goals that you have for yourself.
And I love that flexibility because a lot of the programs you have to be a certain way or there's too many labels. You have to
Yeah.
be this, you have to be that. I love you guys' approach. It's so flexible and you can just come as you are. You don't
Yeah.
have to feel like you're not there yet or you're not or you know, a lot of people feel like, "Oh, I'm not there yet. I'll do that when I've been raw for this long or when I've cleaned
Yeah.
up my diet." Or so you guys can just take people as they are right now, come on over, let's do this. That's
That's
amazing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be awesome. I hope people take you up on this opportunity because it sounds amazing. It's just what I would have loved at the beginning of my journey or at any
Yeah.
time
Thank
really,
you.
because like you, we all have struggles that we want to work with, and that's
Yep.
amazing. So thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing today. It's been such a pleasure listening to you. I feel like you're wise way, way, way beyond your years. So thank you so much for sharing all that you did with us, and I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ava. I feel the same about you. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm appreciating this connection that we, you know, finally got to have after so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope to have you on my channel as well. We'll get an interview going and
Yeah.
share your story as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in today. I hope you have enjoyed Matt's wisdom as much as I have. And leave your comment down below if you have anything else to add to the conversation. If you have any questions for Matt or myself, I'll be more than happy to answer those. And I will see you on my next video. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.